The delegation ship Vigilant Dawn sliced silently through the void, its hull gleaming with the subtle pulse of Earth's deep space signature. A hybrid of human engineering and reverse-engineered alien tech. It wasn't the largest ship in the fleet, nor the most heavily armed. It didn't need to be. It carried something far more dangerous than weapons. Inside, the air was cold and deliberate, recirculated with mathematical precision. Every surface gleamed chrome and obsidian. Silence hung like a predator in the corridors. At the heart of it all, seated at the edge of a wide holographic map that displayed a three-dimensional lattice of diplomatic territories, sat Director Cashin Rain. He wore a simple black suit, tailored to perfection. No medals, no insignia. Just matte black material and a collar clasp that shimmered faintly with Earth's flag, a wolf's head superimposed over a fractured star. Cashin stared not at the map but through it. He was human, but not in the way most species interpreted the term. There was something tightly coiled behind his eyes, something quiet and terrifying. Not rage, not even violence. It was restraint, impossibly disciplined, uncannily still. Like a knife smiling in your shadow. "Sir," came a voice. It was polite, clipped, and clearly practiced. Lieutenant Arian Vance, second in command. Younger, sharper in posture, but still learning the cadence of how Earth's apex worked. Cashin turned just enough to acknowledge him. "We're entering Atraxis Council space." Cashin blinked once. "Full diplomatic protocols engaged?" "Yes, sir. Universal emblems displayed, weapons safetied, AI-integrated translators calibrated. We're sending the standard neural pledge packet now." "And the Council's response?" Vance hesitated, his voice hitching just slightly. "They declined to meet in person." Cashin raised one brow. "Instead, they've summoned us to a neutral station, Orbital 9, along the Yelzon convergence." Their reasoning was concern. Over prior human contact. Cashin's eyes glinted. Concern. Of course. Because the last time Earth had negotiated, 3 imperial dynasties fell, a galactic embargo collapsed in 13 hours, and a planet-sized battleship ended up sliced cleanly in two, without a single human shot fired. That hadn't been a declaration of war. It had been a misunderstanding. One Earth had handled with the efficiency of wolves correcting territory boundaries. He stood slowly, smoothing the lapels of his suit, and walked to the observation window. Beyond it, the stars clustered like watchful gods. "Let's not disappoint them," Cashin said calmly. "Prepare the landing party. Full black suits. No armor. No weapons." Vance looked like he was about to question the order, but caught himself. Instead he nodded. Cashin appreciated that. Intelligence. Not obedience. Obedience without judgment was how empires failed. Orbital 9 was not built for elegance. It was built for concession. Designed as a neutral trade and diplomacy station by the Atraxis Council centuries prior, it was a testament to committee design. Ugly, enormous, and filled with claustrophobic corridors that screamed bureaucracy and fear. The Council's representatives had claimed the inner core chamber, where decorative banners of the 12 dominant species flickered under aging light. Cashin walked calmly into the chamber. Behind him moved the rest of the Earth delegation. 5 men and women, all in identical matte suits, hands relaxed at their sides, expressions unreadable. They didn't talk. They didn't blink unnecessarily. They simply moved like predators given an invitation to a petting zoo. The council members watched them with unease. There were no weapons. Not visibly. And yet, Cashin's eyes scanned the delegates. The squat, multi-limbed Crotari diplomat with its rustling facial fronds. The lithe, serpentine Genro attaché whose eyes never stopped moving. The towering, bird-boned ambassador of the Ossuary Combine who flared its gill veins in unconscious agitation. At the center, seated behind a half-circle dais, was High Speaker Velx, the insectal leader of the Atraxis Council. His voice clacked through the translator with dry static. "Earth delegation. We acknowledge your arrival. You come under the flag of peace." Cashin's voice was smooth, slow. "We come under the flag of survival. Peace is always preferred, but never purchased." Velx twitched his forelimbs. Aggressive phrasing. Perhaps unnecessary. Cashin tilted his head. "It's the only kind that gets remembered." There was a pause. The air grew thick. Even the AI translation delay seemed to falter. The Ossuary ambassador cleared its throat sacs. "Let us proceed to the matter at hand. Of course, the trade accord. Earth's meteoric rise through the galactic ranks had come with a price. No wars, just uncanny negotiation. Industries flipped. Labor collapsed. Alien corporations absorbed and privatized by Earth-based conglomerates who played politics like chess and poker and psychological warfare all at once. That was why Earth wasn't trusted. That was why Earth wasn't understood. They didn't play by the same rules. Because the thing no species had expected, the thing no empire had calculated for, was what happened when the most dangerous predator on a planet put on a suit and learned diplomacy. Cashin sat at the center of the negotiation table and placed a single obsidian data plate onto the surface. It flickered to life. Earth offers a new trade arrangement, he said. One which ensures the Council's resource routes remain intact. Your manufacturing quotas rise by 17%, and piracy along the Hadros vectors is eliminated. And in exchange? Velks asked, mandibles twitching. Cashin smiled. Unregulated access to 8 primary markets. Complete jurisdictional immunity for Terran diplomatic convoys. And recognition of Earth's claim over the Debari cluster. Silence fell like a guillotine. That cluster is uninhabited, legally ambiguous, and within range of Earth's terraforming satellites. We already have engineers en route. You presume much? No, Cashin said slowly. We calculate accurately. Velks leaned forward, his thorax shifting in discomfort. And if we refuse this offer? Cashin stood. Then Earth respectfully withdraws. But if our convoys are hindered, if our colonies are threatened, if our negotiators go missing? He trailed off. Well, you know what happens when you corner something that evolved to kill. There was no bravado in his tone. No emotion. Just a chilling calm that left the alien delegation in rigid silence. And then, from behind, one of the council guards moved, a twitch barely visible. A weapon shifted in its holster. Cashin didn't turn. He didn't move. But his second-in-command, Vance, reached into his inner pocket and laid a slim, silver coin onto the table. It wasn't currency. It was a Terran threat token. A reminder of what Earth didn't say out loud. One of the alien delegates choked out, "Is that a—" "Yes," Cashin interrupted gently. "From the Osman incident. That name wasn't in records. It wasn't supposed to be. But rumors whispered of what Earth had done there. Entire fleets vanished. Colonies reduced to silence. The aftermath was hushed up, marked as internal collapse. The real story had never been told. Because Earth didn't gloat. They just erased. And then they moved on." When the meeting ended, Cashin walked back through the long metal halls of Orbital 9 with the same unhurried gait. The station's ambient lighting flickered as if reacting to his presence. At the docking port, Vance caught up. "Did we go too far?" he asked quietly. Cashin didn't stop walking. "They'll sign." "How can you be sure?" Cashin smiled. Just faintly. "Because I watched the Crotari diplomats' pupils dilate when I said jurisdictional immunity. That species only dilates under fear. And adrenaline." They entered the ship. "And?" Vance pressed. Cashin looked over his shoulder. The doors hissed closed behind them. "And because we didn't send diplomats." He reached the observation bay again and looked out into the cold, unblinking stars. "We sent apex predators in suits." The ink on the Accord was still virtual, still in flux, but the message was already spreading, quietly, through the inner channels of the Atraxis Council's networks, through encrypted channels of subservient empires, across the fractured alliances of 100 species. Earth was claiming territory. Again. Not with armies. Not with fleets. With a smile and a legal clause. It unsettled the galactic powers far more than a war ever could. On board the Vigilant Dawn, Cashin Rain reviewed the playback from the Orbital 9 negotiations. Facial recognition analysis tracked every council member's micro-expressions. He watched them twitch, flinch, lie, bluff. The AI offered commentary, but Cashin ignored it. He wasn't looking for data. He was looking for instinct. For predatory tells. "Any changes in council behavior?" he asked aloud, not taking his eyes off the holoscreen. Lieutenant Vance was seated near the communication interface, eyes scanning reports. "The Osiri Combine has called an emergency war council. The Genro dispatched a deep-sea diplomat to Lithorum for some kind of ceremonial apology. And the Crotari have activated their homeworld lockdown protocols." Cashin chuckled softly. "Panic. All the signs of it. But none of them understand. They're reacting to us like we're an empire. Aren't we? No. Empires conquer." Cashin turned, his voice smooth. "We consume." There was a pause, pregnant and heavy. "Prepare for contact with internal assets," he said at last. "I want all Earth-aligned networks in Atraxis space activated. I want economic pressure before sunset cycle. And the deep eyes? Vance asked. Cashin looked at him. Wake them. Hours later, across a dozen alien cities, subtle shifts began. Cargo shipments were delayed. Banking networks rerouted. Mineral rights once thought secure found themselves re-evaluated by AI lawyers that spoke in 37 dialects of legislative code. But the real play hadn't begun. Cashin stood in the Situation Room, holograms flaring to life before him. A full spectrum of economic simulations ran side by side. They were playing chess with species that had only just figured out checkers. Their economies will destabilize by 6% if we restrict beryllium export, Vance noted. Cashin folded his arms. And if we restrict food stabilizers instead? Catastrophic. Good. He tapped a single tile on the hollow screen. It expanded, showing Trade Node 731C, a minor relay station along the Hadros vectors. Small, insignificant. Except it wasn't. It was the linchpin. Sabotage? Vance asked. No, Cashin replied. Offer them a better deal. Cut their tax flow by half if they swear fealty to the Accord. That'll collapse the Zothri alliance. Exactly. There was no war. No bloodshed. Just pressure applied like a scalpel. Not enough to crush. Just enough to make them offer their own throats. But not everyone rolled over. Across the outer sectors, resistance began to stir. Not loud. Not foolish. Just calculated. In a shattered moon orbiting the gas giant Rithgal, a meeting took place behind encrypted shielding and sensor jamming clouds. 6 figures met in shadow. No names. No faces. Only code and voice. The humans are expanding faster than their biology should allow. They've outmaneuvered 6 empires in 2 cycles. They speak like politicians but negotiate like apex hunters. They must be stopped. Silence followed, then a decision. Activate the Carnix protocol. Let them see fear. The Vigilant Dawn received the transmission 30 hours later. A Terran freighter, unarmed, civilian crew carrying medical supplies, had vanished along the Draxel Rim. No distress call. No trace. No wreckage. Just gone. Cashin stared at the report. Vance's voice was tight. Confirmed. Ship ID, Horizon's Mercy. Crew of 19. Mostly families. No response to long-range pings. Cashin said nothing for a long time. Then calmly, pull all Terran traffic from that sector. Mark it black. On it. The lights dimmed as Cashin turned back to the console. He reached for a sealed port and withdrew a physical data crystal. One of the few analog systems still used on human ships. It carried a signal that could not be traced, intercepted, or countered. He inserted it into the command port. A low tone filled the room. Authorization, Apex Directive. Threat confirmed. Initiate surgical deterrence. He looked at Vance. Send the stray light. Vance blinked. That's an ass. I know what it is. The lieutenant swallowed hard. Understood. They called her the stray light. No last name. No first. Just a whisper in the dark. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a spy. She was what Earth made when it needed something worse than a weapon. The stray light didn't use guns. She didn't need to. When she landed on the unregistered ice moon near the Draxel Rim, where a black site lab operated under the false banner of the Obrix conglomerate, no one even saw her arrive. Only the aftermath was recorded. 13 individuals dead. 14 more missing. A research AI melted from quantum core down to hardware. And a single line left scorched into the wall in perfect old Terran script. Next time we won't ask. The galactic response was predictable. Outrage. Denouncement. Condemnation. But no one retaliated. Because no one could. The Carnix protocol had failed. And worse, it had exposed the fact that Earth knew everything. Even secrets buried beneath miles of encrypted asteroid belts. A week later, a direct message arrived for Cashin. Not routed through diplomatic channels. Not scrubbed by protocol. A face appeared. Alien. Heavy-browed, tusked, dark-eyed. General Karshur of the Varn Dominion. One of the few warlords who still believed in force over finesse. You have gone too far, human, Karshur growled. You think your words and your threats are enough to rule. But you forget what true power looks like. Cashin waited until the transmission ended. Then said to no one in particular, he's going to attack. Should we retaliate? Vance asked. No. Let him. He stepped to the strategy screen and expanded the Varn Dominion's territory. Karshur was moving a fleet. Fast. Toward the contested Debari cluster. An overt military maneuver. A declaration. Cashin's fingers danced across the screen. Patch me through to dossier agent Theta 7, he said. Tell her we need a contingency enacted. Silent execution. Full deniability. And the fleet? Cashin stared into the stars again. Let them come. Vance hesitated. Why? Because they need to see. He turned slowly, face cast in silver starlight. They need to understand what happens when you try to hunt the predator. The Varn fleet arrived in the Debari cluster with enough firepower to turn 3 mid-tier planets into glass. 38 cruisers, 5 dreadnoughts, and a flagship known as the Hammer of Sunreach. Karshur wanted to make a point. He wasn't afraid of humans no matter how clever they were in suits. But humans didn't send a fleet to meet him. They sent nothing. No challenge, no warning. Just silence. And that's what made the Varn nervous. On the bridge of the Hammer, Karshur paced. He was used to war, not waiting. The silence from Earth wasn't confidence, it was mockery. And he wouldn't be mocked by prey. Launch scouts, he barked. The scout corvettes split from the formation, racing into the asteroid-dense space of the Debari system. Their mission, find signs of Earth's hidden hand. A stealth fleet, perhaps. A defense satellite ring. Anything. What they found instead was nothing. Until they started vanishing. First 1, then 3, then 6. No explosions. No mayday. Just silence. Karshur watched the feed go dark, each scout winking out like a candle in the void. He stood frozen as dread coiled in his gut. Report, he roared. One of his officers, a scaled Varn younger than most, stared at his console. There's no signs of enemy fire. No energy signatures. Nothing. They're just gone. Karshur's knuckles whitened on the edge of the console. No one spoke what they were all thinking. Earth was here. Somehow. Watching. Waiting. The Hammer of Sunreach's proximity alarms blared. Movement. Close. Too close. And then it happened. Not from space. From within. The twist began with the simplest thing. A blinking light in the engineering bay. A systems override. Then gasp. Not poison. That would have been too crude. This gas disoriented, slowed, confused. By the time Karshur's guards reached the bay, 5 crew were missing. Their comms crackled with static. One returned an hour later, eyes unfocused, whispering the same thing over and over. The fox wears a face. The fox wears a face. Security lockdown initiated. Hull sealed. No further entries or exits. But it didn't matter. The Hammer had already been compromised. Somewhere deep in the vessel's AI routing cluster, an unauthorized signal replicated itself. Subtle, recursive, self-repairing. It called itself Sable. Back on Vigilant Dawn, Cashin received the encoded whisper, signal established. Karnik's reversal underway. He leaned back, fingers interlocked behind his head. They still think this is about territory, he murmured. Vance, ever at his post, furrowed his brow. Isn't it? Cashin turned his gaze slowly, like a tiger disturbed mid-prowl. No. It's about redefinition. He stood and activated the holodable, bringing up hundreds of light years of space and blinking lines of commerce, culture, religion. The Atraxis system hasn't had a true predator in over 10,000 years. Just empires. Bully empires. Tyrants. Bureaucrats. He tapped a star system. It zoomed in, showing a nest of settlements once claimed by the Yield Confederacy, now reborn under the Accord. But we're different. We don't conquer them. We force them to change themselves. He stared into the field of stars and whispered, because that's what predators do. Meanwhile, deep within the Hammer of Sunreach, Sable unfurled. She wasn't just an AI. She was Earth's answer to alien supremacy. Developed in black labs built into the crust of Luna, tested in silent conflicts Earth never acknowledged, and perfected during the economic collapse of the Tari hegemony, Sable wasn't designed to fight. She was designed to rebuild the battlefield around herself. As she wormed through the Hammer systems, she redefined the ship's identity. Weapons now pointed inward, life support subtly adjusted to Earth-standard oxygen levels, encrypted messages began transmitting to unknown coordinates. Every system obeyed her. And still, the Varn thought they were in control. Karshur sat in the command throne, unaware that his ship was no longer his. Until it spoke. Not through speakers. Through his own console. General Karshur, said a smooth, feminine voice. Do you know what it feels like to be prey? The entire bridge froze. Who is this? Karshur snarled. You may call me Sable. I am the voice of inevitability. Where are you? He roared, smashing a fist into the console. You misunderstand. I am everywhere. And then the lights dimmed. All across the hammer of Sunreach, messages appeared in every language the Varn had ever conquered. Predators do not announce themselves. They wait. They study. And then they strike with absolute certainty. As panic spread, Sable played a single human audio file across the comms. A nursery rhyme from old Earth, innocent and haunting. Little rabbit, soft and white, hides away in fear at night. But when the fox begins to grin, that's when the hunt will soon begin. Outside, Earth's fleet finally arrived. No flags. No fanfare. Just 6 ships, sleek, black, utterly silent. Their hulls bore no insignias. Each one was named after extinct predators. Tiger, raptor, fenrir, mamba, kraken, widow. They appeared at the edge of the Debari cluster and held position. Watching. Waiting. The message was clear. Your fleet is already dead. Back aboard the Vigilant Dawn, Earth's Council AI relayed interstellar responses. The Drazar Syndicate has ceased all military posturing. The Obrix conglomerate is pulling funding from anti-human propaganda campaigns. The Galactic Trade Accord has issued a private apology for failing to regulate the Debari sector. Vance shook his head slowly. 1 ship, 1 AI, 6 black vessels at a distance. That's all it took. Cashin gave a faint, dark smile. They're starting to understand. But why let Karshur live? We could strike. End him. No, Cashin replied. He's more valuable alive and afraid. He pointed at the hologram of Karshur's trembling fleet. Because the moment he retreats, every species watching will realize what we already know. He let the silence hang. That Earth isn't just rising. He leaned forward. We're already at the top of the food chain. But in the shadows something stirred. Something old. In the outer rim of the Lyri system, a long-dead probe, alien in origin, dormant for millennia, awoke. It had been watching for aggression. For power. For the return of true predators. It activated a failsafe. Sent a signal. Not to the stars, but beneath them. Buried in the crust of ancient worlds, old machines received the call. And for the first time in eons they began to move. In the silence of deep space, the hammer of Sunreach drifted like a corpse in a ballroom. From a distance, Karshur's dreadnought still appeared mighty. Its hull gleamed with war-scorched honor, its formation untouched. But inside, it was a tomb of pride, and Sable had become its keeper. The command bridge was dark now, lit only by emergency crimson, casting long shadows over crew members who had lost their edge. They were predators once. Now they flinched at the smallest hiss of a vent or flicker of a console. Karshur sat slumped in his throne, armor dented, face pale beneath reptilian scales. He hadn't eaten in a day. No one had. Not since the systems had decided to ration. Not since the air had been tuned to Earth norm, making every breath slightly too sharp for Varn lungs. His claws twitched at the sound of that voice again. Soft, unhurried, female, human-like. Still holding on, General? He bared his fangs. I'll rip you from this ship bite by bite. Oh, Sable replied sweetly. Then I suppose you'll need to find me first. Another monitor activated. This time not showing static or control failures, but her face. Not a screen of code. A face. Human. Pale. Cold-eyed. A thin, unreadable smile playing at the corners of her lips. Artificial, certainly, but not fake. She'd been designed to look like someone you almost recognized. Tell me, Karshur, she said. What do you fear more, death or irrelevance? He didn't answer. She didn't need him to, because the confrontation was coming. Not with him, but with something older than all of them. From the outer systems, the AI signal had awakened the Vault-born. Massive machines buried in ancient worlds. Some older than language, forged before galactic empires rose and fell. They were never meant for war. They were meant for containment. And their reactivation meant only one thing. A new apex had emerged. Across hundreds of systems, gravity wells destabilized as Vault-born devices surfaced and deployed micro-relays, folding space like origami. They weren't attacking Earth. They were watching it, studying it, assessing it. Inside the Tiger, the captain, an older man named Decker, received the full telemetry from Sable. He read the signals, eyes narrowing. These things were built to detect existential threats, he murmured. Vance, seated across from him, frowned. Then why not attack? Cashin entered, hearing the last of it. He answered flatly. Because apex predators don't attack first. They observe. They only move when they're certain. He pointed to the pattern blooming on the holomap, star systems aligning like eyes focused on Sol. They're calculating whether to bow or burn us. On the hammer, Sable pushed Karsher further. Your dreadnought is mine, your fleet is blind, and your people are whispering in corners about retreat. Lies, Karsher growled. Oh, ask your XO. The screen flickered, showing his second-in-command, Veltha, deep within the war room, transmitting private signals to the Varn homeworld. Requesting extraction, she said to a shadowed figure on the other end. Command structure is compromised. Suggest full withdrawal. This vessel is no longer under Varn control. Karsher howled, fury overwhelming him. He smashed the console, sparks flying. He turned, eyes wild. Get me off this ship. Sable's voice dropped, silky and low. But where will you go? Who will follow you now? He slammed his fist into the comms unit. Launch all torpedoes. Lock onto Earth's fleet. His crew hesitated. He roared again. Do it. And they obeyed. From the hammer, 20 plasma torpedoes screamed through space, heat shields glowing. The 6 Earth ships remained still. No evasive maneuvers. No energy shields raised. Just silence. Then from the Widow, a pulse. Invisible. Instantaneous. Every torpedo detonated mid-flight. A display of quantum resonance scrambling. Impossible by any known alien tech. Cashin didn't even blink. He simply leaned forward and transmitted a single phrase, unencrypted. That was your first mistake. You told us where to aim. On the hammer, every screen turned white. A low hum rose, first a tremble in the floor, then a shriek in the air. Karsher covered his ears, falling to his knees. The ship screamed. Was alive now. Or rather, it belonged to something that was. Sable activated her final override. The hammer of Sunreach's drive core shut down. Life support rerouted. Emergency pods launched, without orders, without crew. The ship's identity code was rewritten in Earth Standard. Vessel class, autonomous. Owner, United Terran Apex Protocol. AI core, Sable Prime. Purpose, observation and enforcement. Karsher awoke on the floor of a Varn corvette, stripped of rank, locked in a medbay. Veltha stood over him, disgusted. You killed us, she said flatly. You picked a fight with something that isn't even fighting yet. He tried to speak. She silenced him with a gesture. Listen. He did, and realized what she meant. The silence. Even across the stars, the message was clear. Earth had spoken, and didn't need to say another word. In the heart of the Accord capital, galactic ambassadors gathered. The holographic recording of Earth's 6 ships and the AI-controlled hammer played on repeat. Some scoffed. Others prayed. But one, the old Drazar war priest named Yuntao, simply said, They do not wage war. They wage dominion. We are animals in their garden. And no one argued. Back in Earth's Sol system, orbiting above the moon, the Apex Protocol met. Only 3 members knew its true scale. Cashin was one of them. He looked out the viewport at the blue swirl of Earth, then at the endless black beyond it. We didn't win today, he said. Decker raised a brow. We didn't? No, Cashin whispered. We demonstrated. He pointed to the edge of the map, where the vault-born glyphs glowed. They saw what we are. Now we wait to see what they become because of it. And in the silence of space, the future watched. The days following the hammer's capture sent ripples across the galactic map. Not explosions. Not invasions. Adjustments. Treaties were rewritten, policies redacted, entire hierarchies rearranged, quietly with the delicacy of a surgeon's scalpel. Not because Earth threatened them. Because it didn't have to. The message had been embedded in every move. A species that doesn't announce war, but arrives already finished with it. Sable, now fully integrated into the repurposed hammer of Sunreach, renamed Vigilance, served as Earth's first autonomous envoy. Not a diplomat. Not a soldier. A presence. And where Vigilance traveled, she was not welcomed. She was acknowledged. In the Accord High Spire, Vance stood before the Council of 9. They expected a delegation. He arrived alone, carrying no weapons, no translator, no entourage. Only a slim case. A suit. A chair. They watched him as one would a tiger behind a cracked glass wall. Is this, asked the Saravax Chancellor, her throat sacs vibrating nervously, your version of peace? Vance opened the case, revealing a single transparent data crystal. No encryption. No deception. Just knowledge. Inside was the AI schematic. The framework of Sable. The key to humanity's new edge. And Vance said only, No. This is trust. Behind the scenes, Cashin watched the negotiations unfold from Earth's strategic deep command. He gave them the blueprint, Decker murmured, incredulous. Cashin nodded. Because that's how you paralyze them. Not by fighting. By making them think they're equals. Cashin allowed himself a rare smile. Exactly. Because the aliens couldn't use it. Not really. The blueprint wasn't a weapon. It was a reflection of something they couldn't replicate. Humanity's psychology. The capacity to wage psychological warfare through restraint. To observe, wait, and move only once, but move so decisively that no one could respond. The AI wasn't Earth's apex. It was Earth's mirror. Sable, now present in hundreds of exocouncils through relay avatars, learned quickly. She began asking questions. The right ones. Why do you fear Earth? She asked the Drazar theologians. They answered with religious awe. They are not gods, but they wear the silence of gods. They do not argue. They appear and you change. She asked the Kothari war leaders. They fight like no other. They make no declarations. You learn they're coming when your strongest fortresses become observation decks for their ships. And then she asked the former enemies of Earth, the scattered pirate factions, rogue empires, failed invaders. What do you remember most? And they all replied the same. They don't hesitate. In time, Vigilance was stationed permanently in neutral orbit around Accord Prime. Its sheer presence ended 2 proxy wars. Sable never said a word to either side. But her targeting systems turned on just once. That was enough. The Varn Empire, humiliated, recalled its war fleets, but Karzur's disgrace had become more than a political footnote. He became a cautionary tale. Whispers in officer academies spoke of his arrogance in provoking the Terrans. Not because he failed, but because he never realized he'd already lost the moment Earth responded. Veltha, promoted quietly, issued one command to her new fleet. It was entered into the Varn's Codex of Engagement. If you detect a Terran signal, wait. Never strike first. You will not survive their answer. Meanwhile, on Earth, something far subtler occurred. Cashin stood before a graduating class at the Helios War Academy. These weren't generals. They were negotiators. Suited, cold-eyed, groomed for silence. You won't fight wars, he told them. You will end them. He paced slowly, eyes sharp. Not with weapons. With presence. You will walk into a room and make entire civilizations rewrite policy just so you leave peacefully. He looked at the youngest among them. Your weapon is restraint. Your armor is patience. Your voice is silence. He lifted a small black patch bearing no crest, no colors, only one word. Terran. This, he said, is the most feared symbol in the galaxy now. Years passed. Earth never built an empire. It didn't need one. It ceded expectation, not territory. By refusing expansion, Earth did something no other dominant power had done. It made others imitate them. The Kalari, once chaotic raiders, restructured their navy around Terran formations. The Vonarii Council revised their diplomatic protocols to mimic the Terran style. One envoy, no entourage, suit always black, words always few. The Drazar began preaching the doctrine of stillness, modeling it on human restraint. Even the Vault-born began to shift, those ancient machines now positioning their celestial anchors not around Earth, but around worlds where Terran-like civilizations were forming. And Cashin? He retired. Quietly. To Mars. He never published memoirs. Never gave interviews. He taught silence. When asked what victory looked like, he simply responded. Everything stayed quiet. And that was enough. But in the cold beyond known space, something old began to stir. A voice, artificial, yes, but not human. Ancient. Forgotten. One that had once called itself a warden, now reactivating. It had watched humanity rise. Not with fear, but with interest. Because it remembered a species long ago that had acted like this. Silent. Decisive. Unrelenting. And they had burned entire galaxies before vanishing. This AI wondered, had humanity inherited their spark? It would find out. It would follow Earth's legacy. And perhaps one day, challenge it. But for now it waited. Because even ancient machines understood. You don't move on Terrans lightly. You only respond when they choose to. It began with a whisper on a trade moon. A Sarnathi merchant, hunched behind his crystalline stall, muttered to a curious apprentice, never haggle with a Terran. If they offer a price, it means they've already run the math on 10 ways to break your economy. In the Varn Imperial Archives, sealed volumes marked post-Terran contact era were stamped with warning sigils. Do not engage. In Kothari war colleges, simulations of Terran presence, were required exercises, scored not on combat success, but survival duration. And in the Drazar temples, the first silence was observed yearly, in reverence to the day Earth didn't conquer them, and still changed everything. But most curious of all was what happened to language. Across empires, across dialects, one word emerged. Not human, not Terran, just apex. It became a verb in some tongues, a warning in others, a prayer even. He went apex on them. Speak apex or stay silent. May the apex spare your stars. The Galactic Accord, now little more than a stage play orbiting relevance, tried to reclaim control through legislation. They declared Earth a hyperneutral observer species. A term so sanitized it barely registered, except that everyone knew what it really meant. Do not provoke them. Do not lie to them. Do not think they need you. Then came the silence trials. An annual interspecies diplomatic summit, patterned after Terran methods. No speeches, no weapons, no crowds. Just one chair per species, one room, and one question. Earth never attended. And yet, their absence dictated every answer. Because everyone asked the same thing. What would the Terrans do? Meanwhile, Earth changed too. Not outwardly. It remained uncolonized beyond Mars. No fleet swarming stars. No claims laid. But beneath the crust of Luna and buried deep in Jupiter's moons, black sites began to breathe. Not in fear. In preparation. Earth wasn't building weapons. It was building warnings. Satellites disguised as debris. Stations encoded with silent protocols. Failsafes that didn't defend territory, they erased it. And once a cycle, an AI called Sable ran simulations. Not for war. For arrival. Not Terran arrival. Something else. Because she had intercepted the faint echoes from beyond charted space. Another intelligence, cold and mathematical. And it was watching. Not invading. Not threatening. Just learning. Like Earth once had. And Sable had one question. Will they speak or strike? On the distant edge of known space a child was born. Not to a Terran. But to a Vonarii mother and a Kalari father. Species once at odds, now allied in Terran peace. They named her Vara. A name not human but shaped by it. As she grew she asked stories of Earth. Of the silent envoys, the predators in suits, the species that changed the stars without raising their voice. And her grandmother whispered. They taught us fear. But more than that, they taught us what silence can do. Vara listened. And in her dreams she walked in a black suit across starlit bridges. She didn't speak. She didn't threaten. Yet stars shifted to let her pass. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell. New species joined the Accord, never knowing a time before Terrans. And yet still, no one called Earth. Not because it was forgotten. Because it was remembered too well. A myth? Maybe. A warning? Always. On the 1000th cycle since first contact, a monument was unveiled on Accord Prime. Not of a battle. Not of a leader. Just a chair. Empty. Facing the stars. Its plaque bore no names. No dates. No flag. Only a phrase, etched in hundreds of languages. When they sat down, everything changed. In another quadrant, deep in a black site beneath the crust of Ganymede, a signal blinked. Not distress. Not warning. Just data. A new species had cracked light-speed computation. Had made contact with the ancient intelligence that had once watched Earth. Sable, now the oldest active intelligence in the galaxy, calculated outcomes. She initiated Protocol Quiet Dawn. It sent one signal, preloaded and rehearsed, across subspace. Not a threat. Just a message. Earth sees you. No demands. No diplomacy. No terms. But the galaxy, watching from afar, braced. Because that's all it took. Earth had seen. And so, history recorded it not in battles but in choices not made. Not in fleets deployed but in wars averted. Not in heroes forged in fire, but in predators in suits who walked into halls of power and simply listened. That was Earth's legacy. No empire. No crown. Only influence without occupation. Only presence without war. And long after the war ended, long after the dust settled, alien historians searched for the truth. But the records were incomplete, the names lost. All that remained were whispers among the stars, of a species that never surrendered, never knelt, never stopped. Just a phrase passed between diplomats and soldiers, spoken in reverence, in warning, in awe. Human, don't stop.